Boom. We're back.
We're back,
shit
baby.
Talk Sheena. Sheena getting shit talk.
Last week was just a one-off. Last week we gave her a little bit of grace, but we're having some gracism this week.
For those of you who have not watched Southern Hospitality, yeah, you should go check it out, and then you'll know what gracism is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. Like, Grace says she doesn't consume dairy, but she consumes cheese, yogurt, milkshakes, creamer, and coffee. Everything that has dairy in it except for straight up milk. But she's like, I'm dairy free. That is a gracism.
Yeah. No, sister. You have dairy in your system.
Oh, she is so funny. She's so adorable.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to watch it today, I think.
It's really good.
List.
It's early Saturdays, but in the South.
Which you can't get any better. It's kind of like maybe like a Southern Charm vibe, but with Vanderpump vibes also.
Because it's like the restaurant setting, and there's the Ken and Lisa of it, which is Leva and Lamar. Mm-hmm. And Lamar, I think, is definitely a lot tougher than Ken. More scary.
Yeah. He's not just like Ken, who's like packing around Jiggy and saying random things.
Lamar comes in and you kind of shit your pants. So
Lamar's kind of a scary name.
Yeah.
Like, when I think of like somebody named Lamar, I think that they're like really tall and like commanding of a space. So
he looks like an NFL lineman, honestly. So
I can see that.
But that show was really awesome. Everybody should go check it out.
Check out Southern Hospitality.
Heck yeah. I was going through my pictures last night when I was in Charleston with my friends, trying to see if we were at that club.
And you were?
Well, I found pictures with the location on it, and we were a block away from it.
Oh, close enough.
Close enough. We were still on King Street, which is where the restaurants are. So we were on King Street, which is like the biggest street for dining and bars and everything in Charleston. Wherever we went had the same vibes as the Southern Hospitality Club.
They were all kind of the same vibe. I miss college. College was the days.
Yeah. This was like a year out of college. We went on this trip, and it was, that was where we learned that like we could not stay up and party like we used to.
Yeah.
Was not it. Like, the first day in Charleston, I got a severe migraine and I could not function for like a full 16 hours.
I swear, it's like the second that you graduate, your body knows, and it's like, we're done with this part of our lives.
Yep, we're done. You can't drink, you can't do anything. If you want to stay up past 11, good luck.
Good luck to you. Yeah. Now it's like 9:30 and I'm like, ooh, it's getting a little late for me.
Oh, same here. I was in bed last night by like 7, I think, and we turned on a movie and then turned on some Southern Hospitality and went to sleep after that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm in bed like reading with friends on in the background. Just existing. Phone on Do Not Disturb.
I have mine automatically set at a certain time to turn on Do Not Disturb. It's really nice to do that, which we can go into that self-care.
Yep. On the bonus.
This week I'm going on vacation. So
which we love.
Yeah, and I will not be here to record at our usual time. We're going to have an extra bonus episode that's going to be a little bit shorter to take place of next week's episode.
Mm-hmm. And in the spirit of vacation, we're going to be talking about all things self-care related.
Yep, it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure to check that out. Link in bio.
Link in bio.
I've been saying that all week.
We're really trying to amp up our game here with this professionalism. So, you're going to be hearing link in bio a lot, probably.
Yeah, you're going to see it a lot in posts, too. Don't get annoyed with us.
We're sorry. We're just following Riverside's advice.
Riverside gives us some good advice. Do you want to go into the highs and lows for the week?
Yeah, I want to hear yours first.
Well, my low for the week is my dog is having some big allergy issues, and she is scratching nonstop. And this has been going on since October, but it's increasingly gotten worse. And now she's up to 3 Benadryl a day because she is a hefty girl. And the vet says that's perfectly fine to give her 3 Benadryl a day, but she might have to go on some other kind of medication for this if it doesn't stop. We think it's environmental because we moved into this place in September, and then about a month later is when the itching starts. So I don't know if there's something outside that she's allergic to, like a specific plant, tree. I don't know.
Poor Millie.
I feel really bad for her. Like, I can hear her right now in the living room, like scratching herself. So
it's sad when they're itchy like that. Max has struggled with the same thing, and you feel bad because there's like nothing you can do but try to give them the Benadryl, but they need like a Claritin for dogs.
Yeah, and she's got like I would describe it like little hives all over her belly and everything. And I'm sure they're all over her body, but like you can't see it because of the fur. I just feel so bad for her. And I've sprayed her with, there's like this anti-itch medication spray that I have that I spray on her. Oatmeal baths, nothing's helping.
Poor Mill.
I know. She's so sad.
Thoughts and prayers to the Millie girl.
Yeah. I hope she gets better. So
that's a harsh low. That's not a good.
Chicky's in there messing up stuff. I can hear him moving the stool across the floor.
I was like, do you have a ghost in your house?
I do, but
we need to talk about that because I want to know about it. We don't have to talk about it right now, but we have to talk about it eventually.
Yeah, we definitely do. It's not like a bad ghost or anything.
Yeah.
I think it's just the person who owns this house. I think it's their mom who passed away just like a couple of years ago. I think in the house, in this room that I'm in right now.
Everyone, welcome the owner's mom to the podcast.
Yeah, I think her name was like Edna, if I'm not mistaken, because I still get mail that has like Edna on it, and I was like, "Who is Edna?" And Josh was like, "I think that's like the owner's mom that passed away."
Welcome, Edna.
Like, oh, yes. So I can feel her sometimes when I'm in here doing therapy, judging me, judging the things that
I say. Was Edna doesn't know. Edna doesn't know if you're messing up or not. She's not a therapist.
No, but she's definitely like, probably not. Probably shouldn't say that. I would have said that differently.
Probably wasn't your best advice.
I could just feel the judgment at times across the room. Like right now, I can feel the judgment. So
Edna, if you have something to say, then just say it. This is a safe place for you too, sister.
Yeah, I mean, all we do is like we just hear creaks in the house, like someone's walking across the floor, which is like I just blame it on the cats. Even if the cats are in bed with me and I hear creaking, and like we all just kind of like turn and look, and we're just like, okay, it was the cats.
Yeah,
even though they're
always the cats. Always the cats.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the low. Is poor Millie itching. But my high for the week is Taylor Swift doing all these remixes while in Australia. It's so good. I haven't heard a bad one yet.
And I think there's a reason to all of them. Like, because there are a bunch of songs that we don't think go together, but I think he's no dummy. There's a reason that they're all being put together. So
I think so too. I mean, especially like Come Back, Be Here with Daylight mixed in. Like those are two I Miss You songs put together with like You Are the Love of My Life song. And I think that was for Travis.
You know what? I didn't think about that, but you're probably right. Right now I'm like so stuck on Joe just because like of the new album and everything that I'm like, what message is she sending Joe? But actually I think that is to Travis.
I think that one was. I think, what was it, the night before where she combined Getaway Car, The Other Side of the Door, and August. Together. Yeah. I think that was for Joe.
Yeah.
It's so Joe over, right? That's what the kids are saying.
So Jover.
Jover.
Jover. Hashtag Jover.
I wonder if anyone has given her a bracelet that says that. That would be hilarious.
Hashtag Jover.
I think she would wear it proudly.
You know, a guy that I follow on TikTok got the 22 hat. And she saw him, she saw that he had a bunch of bracelets on. And she said to him, I would have died if she said this to me. She said, I've seen your videos. They're so funny. And then she said, give me one of those, talking about his bracelets. and he took one off and gave it to her, and I want to know which one he gave to her.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't even know because he's probably like in the moment freaking out.
He was dressed up like Jack in the video where they're making Getaway Car too, and he like manifested her singing Getaway Car. Yeah.
In that like cute like yellow shirt and everything. Did he?
Yeah.
So fun. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love when people dress up as Jack.
I know. It's so cute. I'm going to send you a video of him later so that you can see him getting the 22 hat.
Sure, that was so cute. But if Taylor Swift ever said, give me one of those, I think I would just like pass out. I would be like, yes, mother.
Yeah, okay.
Take them all.
100%. Yeah, I would like yank off my arm and be like, here, you can have it. Take the whole arm.
His life was made.
Yeah, he posted a TikTok and he was like, what do I do now? Like, there's nothing else for me to do in life. That's it.
That was like the greatest high that you could ever have.
Yeah. Your wedding day, the day that you have kids, nothing's going to compare to that. So just go ahead and hang it up.
Hey, the year that I got married, I saw the Jonas Brothers for the first time. Nick Jonas laughed at me. And I still say that, like, out of the 2021 year, that was like the greatest high. And Josh is like, not us getting married.
Sorry, Josh, you're secondary in this.
I was like, Nick Jonas laughed at me.
Yeah, the Nick Jonas.
The Nick Jonas. So, and I made sure, like, I had it recorded and everything. He really did laugh at me. He looked dead at me and laughed. So, you want to do your highs and lows?
Yes, I'm looking at my notebook because I wrote them down because I'm so terrible at, like, identifying my highs and lows. My high of the week is that I finished all of my notes.
Ooh.
Before the weekend. I finished them at work on Friday, and I did not have to do a single note this weekend. Yeah. I even had an intake. And usually my intake notes take longer. There was a part of me on Friday that was like, I can just do that on Saturday because I have terrible time management, and when I don't have clients, I just want to like talk and watch TikTok and hang out. So I was like, no, I'm gonna sit in my office and I'm gonna finish this. So shout out to me for having time management skills.
Heck yeah, you did good.
Yeah, so it was a good way to practice self-care for the weekend. My low does not sound that serious, but my low is the fact that the snow did not stick when it snowed here the other day. Because I love the snow. I love when it snows, like at night. I love waking up to a bunch of snow. I just think it's pretty, it's clean, it's quiet. I just feel peaceful. And I got so geared up for it to snow. And then I walked Max Friday night and it was snowing and I was like, this is amazing. This is great. And then it was gone by the next morning.
Yeah. It stuck for like an hour or two maybe. Yeah. And then it was gone. Just disappeared. Yeah.
So that's a little sad for me because I love the snow so much. Also, this is very random. Maybe this is also categorized as a low. I completely missed Groundhog Day. I completely missed that it happened.
It was weeks ago.
I think I texted you and I was like, bro, did you know it was Groundhog Day? And I think in school, they like make a big deal out of Groundhog Day. Like you do something for it. Nobody prepares you that no one's going to tell you when you're an adult that Groundhog Day happened.
Listen, I'm going to read this from what my friend sent me the other day. She sent me a TikTok that was like lion ass fake. Yeah. Fake ass groundhog. Yeah. And I said straight to fucking jail for Lil Phil. As soon as it started snowing, I was like straight to jail, Phil.
That's okay. That's how I found out that Groundhog Day happened. Was somebody put a TikTok about how he lied? And I was like, how did he lie? Groundhog Day hasn't happened yet. False. Happened February the 2nd.
Yep.
Which, granted, I was in a little bit of a slump February the 2nd. I didn't really know what life was February the 2nd, but still.
Is it always February 2nd?
I think if somebody were to ask me just on the street, like if Billy on the street came up and was like, when do you think Groundhog Day is? I would probably peg it like mid-March. I'm wrong, but that's probably what I would peg it as.
Yeah. Let me see. I wouldn't think it would be that far out.
You said,
Because why would there be like, 6 more weeks of winter in March because it's almost spring by then.
winter is going to go until May.
Okay, yeah, it's February 2nd every year. So,
Well, that's good to know, because I did not know that. And I don't know. I guess I was just upset that I missed it. Whoever picked the day of Groundhog Day, y'all did good, because it couldn't have been me, apparently.
yeah, but Phil is a liar.
Like most men.
Yeah, like the low for tonight is 17 degrees. Phil.
Maybe we should switch to a female groundhog. Maybe we need a Phyllis to come in and take over.
Let's see what the weather's like this week. Hey.
Welcome to Verified Therapist, where we're going to check the weather for everybody this week.
We're going to check the weather. It's going to be in the 60s, so that's better. That's a little bit better. But where I'm going, it's going to be in the 50s. So.
And we're not telling you where she's going until she gets back, so no one can stalk her.
Yeah, don't stalk me. I mean, I'm going to be with my brother, so technically he's going to be stalking me since he listens to the show.
Shout out to Kate's brother.
Yeah.
I don't know if he wants his name out there like that. So shout out to Kate's brother.
He said that he really liked having a shout out last week. He really let it get to his head though.
We're going to shout him out every single episode then.
No, don't give him that much credit.
Our number one listener.
Yeah, hey, Jiggy it's already gone to his head. He made his podcast debut last week. It's already gone to his head. No, he hasn't. He was in here before we started recording, and then he decided he wanted to be a psycho, so we let him out.
He thinks he's too good to actually be on the pod anymore. So
yeah, he's going to create his own podcast.
Yeah.
That would be so funny. What would he even talk about?
Being a sex monster.
Holy shit. I wonder how much of this we're going to have to cut.
98%.
Well, on today's episode, we are going to do a quick recap of the Super Bowl and do another quick recap of Vanderpump Rules this past week. Not a lot happened on Vanderpump Rules, so it should be fairly quick. And then our main topic for today is One Tree Hill.
And specifically, like, all the background, I guess, power dynamics that were at play, all the abuse allegations, things like that.
Going to go more in depth with that and the disgusting behavior of the creator, which they refer to him as Voldemort.
We're going to go ahead and name drop him and say his name is Mark Schwann. So go look him up.
Yeah, piece of shit. That's what we're going to go over today. So stick with us. Again, we'll have timestamps.
All right, here we are on our reality. Well, I want to say reality recap, but this is just like our world recap.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with the recap of the Super Bowl. Yeah. What did everyone think of Usher?
Listen, I saw mixed reviews, but I liked Usher. I think he did a great job. And also, I lost my mind when Ludacris came out, because where has Ludacris been? And I miss him.
Doing Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah. Forever and always. That will never end.
No.
I loved seeing him out there.
Mm-hmm. That was so much fun. Lil Jon popping up.
Yes.
I mean, her coming out. That was crazy.
I saw something that was like, the good part about getting older is I'm finally the demographic that the halftime show is aiming for. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, that's true.
That is true. So one thing that was missing from that performance, though, was Justin Bieber. I was really looking forward to it because all the rumors were saying that Justin Bieber was going to pop up. And Usher is Justin Bieber's mentor and has been for years, since like he pretty much opened the door for Justin Bieber to start his career. So I was really expecting that. Some kind of remake of like their Grammys performance or, you know, anything like that. But also word on the street was that Justin didn't show up to rehearsals. Like Usher invited him and he just never showed up for rehearsals. And then the time came and they were just like, too late, bro.
I really, and we've talked about this, but I like really think that Justin Bieber, we're about to see him like exit stage right of the spotlight. I
do too.
I think that child fame did a number on him, and I think that he's just ready to dip.
Yeah. I really want to go more in depth on the impacts of child fame too in an episode, like do a full episode on that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we've seen Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, all of these celebrities go through, Demi Lovato, the whole Carter family.
Oh, yeah. We're going to cover that, like the whole Carter family on an episode of Famous Families too. But I've deep dived on the Carter family, so I've got some research under my belt for that. But yeah, we've seen like all these child stars, and it's almost like they've lived an entire life before they're 25 of this career. And it almost like chews them up and spits them out sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, he lived like 4 lifetimes before he was 19 years old.
Yeah.
The One Time music video literally came out when he was 14, 15 maybe.
He was
and then Bieber Fever happened right after that. And then this huge just amount of people like chasing after him. I mean, they compared it to Michael Jackson and everything. And like the closest thing that I can think of now is Taylor Swift. Of like the crowd, people trampling each other, screaming, crying, all of those things.
Yeah.
Which I got trampled at a Justin Bieber concert back in 2010.
But you lived to tell about it.
I lived to tell about it. I got really hurt and I still have scars from it.
But we're glad she's here.
But it was worth it because I was like 5 feet away from Justin.
She was in Bieber Fever. I was a little too old for Bieber Fever. I was like in my emo phase then. And so Bieber Fever didn't really affect me as much. But as I got older, I was like, I said I didn't know very many of his songs. But then when you played like songs for me, I'd be like, oh, I know this one and I kind of like this one. So I gained more respect, I guess, for him the older that I got.
I mean, just his impact on young girls back then was crazy. Yeah. I mean, you can say the same for Usher, too. I know all the millennial women out there, when Usher took his shirt off, was just like, whoo!
Dead, yeah. It was funny because Kim Kardashian was there, and she was there with Odell Beckham Jr., I guess because they're dating. Again, news to me. She was like on record for talking about how much she like loved Usher with his shirt off. And I was like, I bet Kim Kardashian's melting right now.
She probably was. Poor Odell sitting there.
Yeah.
And they've been dating and hanging out for a minute.
Something's going on. Something's going on with my life. That normally I'm like so on top of this stuff, but something's happening because I'm not. So yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. I get the Dumois like newsletter, and I think that gives me a lot of insight into what's going on. And I'm like, oh, this person's been hanging out with this person.
Yeah.
Like, didn't expect that. I did not expect Odell and Kim Kardashian.
My TMZ is just not showing me what it needs to show me, apparently, because I follow TMZ religiously and they're not giving me the information that I need.
The TMZ is so hit or miss with like information.
It is.
No, TMZ was the one that in the 2000s, like the early 2000s, was dropping all the time that these celebrities were dead.
And they were
like, what? Yeah. Why were you even reporting that?
Yeah. Yeah. I follow Dumois on Instagram. So, but yeah, so I liked the halftime show. Like I said, I've seen mixed reviews on it, but I think that that's any halftime show. Either people like really love it or people really hate it. And you can't really please everybody. So
like the boomer generation is the one that complains the most about every single halftime show. And I'm like, why are you complaining?
A lot of times I'll hear them say like, well, it's not Prince or it's not Michael Jackson. And I'm like, those people are dead. That's not, it can't be them again.
They can't.
These are our versions of Prince and Michael Jackson and those big like stars. I think it just looks different because our media looks different and our world looks different, but that's still like good to us, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was still really nostalgic for a lot of people, like an entire generation of people who were at either school dances or at clubs singing So when Lil Jon popped up out of the crowd, that was nostalgic.
That was nostalgic, yeah. Now, what about Travis and his now infamous moment of passion towards the game with Andy Reid?
So I have like mixed feelings about a lot of it, and they've come out and talked about it and on their podcast too. That was a jackass move. Like you don't you don't yell in someone's face, first of all,
Yeah.
but also the dynamic that he has with Andy Reid as his coach is different. It's kind of like a father-son type thing. And when you're in a game like that and it's heated and it's passionate, and Travis is a very passionate football player, and he sees his team out there struggling, like, of course he's going to say something, and he's going to be very passionate in the way that he presented it. He shouldn't have done it. Andy said that he just caught him off guard. That's why he stumbled. He wasn't paying attention. And I'm sure Andy's going to get his lick back at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's, but also people, I think a lot of Swifties in general are not familiar with the dynamics of sports and have never seen the competition and the heated passion that comes with sports, especially at a professional level too, but even at just like a college or a high school level. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but also when you're in the heat of it and in the moment, emotions kind of take over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't agree with what he did. He was, I mean, that was definitely aggressive, but I don't think it was grounds for people to say that he's a domestic violence abuser. Like that's off the fucking wall to say that.
That's a large stretch. And I think it's very dangerous to, first of all, make those accusations about someone when they are so much in the public light right now. But if he wasn't dating Taylor Swift, I wonder how much of that would have made headlines the way that it did. Again, not excusing his behavior. I definitely think that there's some room for him to grow and learn from that. But I think if anybody had a camera on them in their worst moment of something like that, it could probably be broadcast and people would have a lot of judgments to make too, you know? So I think that's where I think, and we talked about it last week a little bit, but like where cancel culture is so dangerous because it doesn't give people room to grow. And on their podcast, the New Heights podcast, you know, Jason was like, I think we can both agree that was out of line. And you don't hear Travis go, nope, I was completely in the right. Travis is like, no, it was. Like, I shouldn't have done that. That should be enough. Like him taking accountability and saying, I shouldn't have done that. I should do something different next time. That should be enough, but it's not going to be.
Oh, now that he is in this limelight, the spotlight is kind of centered on him and Taylor right now. Anything that they do is heightened. And that game, like, I mean, there probably was at least one camera on her the entire time, like they do at award shows. And there was probably one camera on the sideline the entire time, and they just so happened to catch that moment between Andy and Travis. And for all those people who have never played sports before, a lot of times people have those passionate interactions with their coach. Doesn't mean that they're right about it, but also like I played sports when I was younger, and Josh has played sports all of his life too. Like the coach is going to get his lick back. Let me tell you, like whether that be run until you puke in practice,
it's going to be addressed between them.
Yeah, it's going to be addressed. And, you know, in professional sports, sometimes that's addressed by a fine of a lot of money. That you have to pay to the NFL in particular. Or that's just your coach really digging into you in practice, like the next time you guys have practice. And I do wonder how this would have looked if they hadn't won.
I agree with that.
Like what the outrage would have been for him to act like that. And then they didn't win.
After that, you know, you see Travis celebrating a lot, which he should. But then you see a lot of people being like, I don't know why he's getting to celebrate, why he's acting like he didn't care because he was celebrating his win with his team.
Like, it's going to get addressed. It's not going to get addressed, like, right there in the moment after it happens. But eventually it is. Like, why not just let them celebrate? And then when he goes back to practice, when they start practice in a couple of months, we're not going to see the punishment that he gets for that. There is going to be punishment. So it's just not going to be made public. Because why should it? Like if, like, for example, if you were in a basketball game and you threw a tantrum on the sideline and yelled at your coach and your coach was like, okay, like they let it go for a time being. Most of the time when you get back to the locker room, something is going to be said to you, and there's not cameras in the locker room for these things. So you don't know what Andy said to him in the locker room because that was before halftime. So he could have been like, shut the fuck up, Travis.
Yeah.
Don't ever yell, don't ever yell at me like that again.
Yeah. Don't ever do that again. Yeah. And I can almost guarantee you that if that's what happened, Travis probably was like, you're right, I shouldn't do that.
Mhm.
Like, I doubt that it was like a pushback on that.
No, because from everything that he has said about Andy Reid, like he respects him so much.
Yeah.
People just want something to talk about.
Well, and then they were celebrating and had that parade in Kansas City, and then something awful happens, as we have seen time and time again. You know, there was two people who opened fire at the parade and killed one person and injured 10. Is that right?
It was 22 people.
Oh, 22 people. Wow. I didn't realize it was 22. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely awful. But this is the reality of America now. Like, it's so sad that this is the reality of, like, when you see a crowd of people, you have to look and see, like, where's the exit? Where's the quickest way I can get out of this situation if I need to? When you go places, like, am I wearing the right shoes in case I have to run? Like, these are the simple realities.
It's awful.
Yeah, and there was someone said there was 800 police officers there, and they still couldn't stop this from happening.
I don't know. I mean, I know what my ideas to prevention is, but like, it just seems so normal now. You know, I mean, we have kids in schools who practice what to do when a shooter comes in. That's just our normal.
I saw one clip of, he's an ESPN analyst talking, and he was there, and when he got back to his hotel, there was an older woman that was there, and she was talking about, like, her experience with the shooting and how her 11-year-old grandson looked at the family and was like, hey, I've trained for this, follow me and we'll get out of here. An 11-year-old took control in that situation.
That's not how it should be.
Like, we're not a third world country. Why are our kids training like we are in school? It's so sad.
Well, and you go and you expect to have a good time and celebrating something positive. You don't expect, you know, I'm sure that the woman who died, I mean, thoughts and prayers to her family. There's no way she could have ever expected to go into something celebratory and positive and good and that be her last moments. It's awful.
So sad. Like, you can't enjoy anything. I mean, like, what was it, a few years ago, there was that, like, Christmas parade that someone just, like, drove through. And then there was a 4th of July parade that someone, you know, a shooting happened there too. You know, there's just so many things that, like, you go there with your family not expecting things like that to happen, and then they happen.
Yeah. I know, like, when I go to certain things now, like, I think about that. I go to a movie theater and I'm like looking, where am I going to go if something happens? Somebody even walks near the front of the theater and I'm watching them, trying to figure out what the next move is. And I think that's just a collective, like, trauma response that all of our generation has, just from this, like, secondary trauma of seeing it on the news and hearing about it and training for it and things like that, that we just have these responses now. And it's wild to think about.
Yeah, it's wild to think about that. That's something that we have to be vigilant about all the time. Like, you can't even go shopping at a store without having to be vigilant. So, the realities of America is, like, we want to present as, like, this real top of the world type thing, and then you get here and it's trash.
It's a mess, y'all. It's a mess out here. Yeah.
There's so many things that we can do to change it. But there's so much greed with, and we're not going to get into politics here, but there's just so much greed at the top that I don't know what changes. Both sides of the aisle just want to scream at each other.
Right.
How are we going to get anywhere if all you guys are doing are yelling at each other?
Right.
And not listening to either side.
Yeah. So, Vanderpump.
Honestly, I think this episode was a little weak.
Yeah, I didn't really feel a whole lot with this episode.
No, I think the biggest thing that happened was the Tom and Lisa conversation.
I'm very torn about the Tom and Lisa conversation. Do I think it's a horse and pony show that Tom Sandoval could be putting on? Yes. Does the therapist in me get a little spooked about saying that's a horse and pony show because we don't ever know if someone's in that space or not truly. So, like, obviously, like, we say a lot about Tom Sandoval on this podcast. We talk a lot about his choices and his behaviors and things like that. But we would never want Tom Sandoval to be in a position to where he would ever harm himself or complete suicide because of all the backlash. So if it is real, I really hope that he finds a way to get some help for that.
I hope so too. The part that makes me like really uncomfortable with the situation was, you know, not just hearing that, because I really felt for him in that moment, because I can't imagine what getting all of that public backlash does to a person. But for him to be then, as we talked about last week, sending those letters to Rachel while she was in this trauma center, it makes me feel like maybe he was projecting a little bit at that point.
Yeah. I agree with that. And if he was truly in that spot, I would hope that he would have more empathy for her and her mental health at that point, to not make it worse and to not discourage her from being in a place that was healthier for her.
Because that's all she was doing, was trying to better herself and make it through this extremely tough time in her life.
Right.
So I also want to say that Lisa was on the phone when Tom walked in there.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, fuck."
She was just shook, as we all were.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this, like with Lisa and Sandoval. She gives Sandoval the benefit of the doubt all the time. She babies him.
She does, yeah.
I think we're going to see that this season. I'm convinced that conversation, she was a little tough on him. She was kind of like pull your head out of your ass. Like, you fucked up, get over it.
Right.
But I also think that she is going to baby him. I think that's I have a feeling that is the only tough conversation that she is going to have with him this entire season. And the rest is going to be her babying him and coddling him and telling everybody else, "Oh, well, you've all made mistakes too. Just forgive him."
Right. I think that the only person that she won't say that to is Ariana, because I think that she does understand that Ariana's not going to do that, and there's no reason for her to. But I agree with you. I think that everybody else, she's going to try and do what she has always done, which we admire, but at the same time, it doesn't always work. She's always trying to get them to mend fences, to find ways to come back together.
Which is what she did with Tom Schwartz.
Right, yeah.
And I do feel for Tom Schwartz, him talking about everything that his family was going through, which is, so upsetting. I can't imagine, you know, your family member being sick and having to go back and forth between, where are they from? Florida? Yeah.
I think it's somewhere far. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty far. Having to go back and forth between California and Florida and having to worry about your brother's health. That's extremely upsetting, and I feel for him. But I think Lisa inviting him to Lake Tahoe was her way of trying to get the whole gang back together.
And that's just not going to happen. Not in the foreseeable future. It's
not going to happen. And I don't know why she sent poor Tom Schwartz, who always backs down. You know, we saw a different side of him last week.
We did, yeah.
But then this week, he kind of reverted back to Schwartzy ways. And old Schwartzy showed up to Sir with everyone and invited them to Lake Tahoe. And then said, "Hey, I'm also inviting Sandoval."
And then Schwartz just does such a great job at sticking his foot in his own mouth. Ariana was like, "I don't want to be around him." And Schwartz was like, "You all live in the same house, so I didn't think it would be any different." And I'm just like, oh.
But
Schwartz,
really, would it?
Please.
Honestly, would it be any different?
Not if they brought Anne, because Anne would be the mediator.
You know who I think could be the Anne in this situation? James
Lala?
Kennedy. Oh, James Kennedy.
that preview of him being like the drawing that line in the sand, and he's like, "This is Tom's side, and this is Ariana's side, and you don't cross the line."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that's so funny.
He would be a perfect mediator.
He would make it so funny too.
He would, yeah.
Yeah, but poor Schwartzy. Like, Schwartzy always has to be the bearer of bad news a lot of times. And he takes on a lot of the brunt of Tom Sandoval, which is, again, what Katie has talked about for years of, like, why are you the one that has to
all this?
Yeah, like, take on all this and like try to mend fences for Tom Sandoval. Like, why can't Tom Sandoval come in here and mend his own fucking fences?
Right.
He wants to send old Schwartzy, who is the ever loving, people pleasing person, to do it.
Yeah.
It was so funny to see him though, when they all started screaming at him, like Lala, Ariana, and Katie. All three started going in on Schwartzy, and he was like,
just backing up. Yeah,
he was like, guys, I just wanted us all to come together.
You know what I mentally see when I saw him doing that, to when Jax and Brittany were together and they were having that housewarming party, and she plays that recording of Jax and Faith, and James is like trying to talk to the girls, and Brittany stands up, starts screaming at him, and James like takes off running across the house and just like leaves. That's what I envision Schwartz doing in his brain.
Literally, just retreating down the hallway.
Just retreating. Yes, just getting out.
Because the girls are going crazy on him.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. That was such a funny scene. I love that scene so much. Wasn't that the episode that we got Rotten Hell from Brittany? Yeah.
And then when James makes that rap about it, and he's telling Sandoval and Ariana, and Tom Sandoval's like, "No, dude, that's not a good idea." But then it cuts to him in the one-on-one interview or whatever, and James is like, "Everybody was loving it," and he's like, "Everybody was like, yeah, I remember," and he's like laughing, and I'm like, James, why are you instigating everything? But it's so funny that you can't help it.
That is such James Kennedy energy, just to instigate fights and arguments and give us some good content. That is what James is there for. Well, I also want to say that I think that Lala, Katie, and Ariana were being mean girls. I did not like their attitude. I understand the anger and the frustration, but also teaming up, it's like 3-on-1 wasn't necessary. Like, obviously, I understand, like, Katie, that's your ex-husband.
Right.
I get it, but also, like, you guys chose to still work together at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you guys have to, at some point, make some kind of decision there. And we've seen them go back and forth. Like, sometimes, like, Schwartz and Katie are cool, and then other times they're, like, at each other's throat like they were this past week.
And I feel like that depends on where Katie's at. I feel like that's not Tom Schwartz. I feel like that depends on where Katie is.
And then, like, Ariana, I understand being mad at Schwartz. And I think Ariana is taking out her anger on Schwartz because she can't take her anger out on Sandoval. Because she doesn't want to see him. So she's directing all of that negative energy towards Schwartz.
Yeah.
Which I understand it.
Yeah.
But also, I don't think it's fair when it's 3 against 1. Like, it's not a good look.
Yeah. And Tom Schwartz wasn't trying to, like, ruin anybody's life. He was just trying to, like you said, do what Lisa said.
Yeah, like Lisa was like, go ask everybody.
Yeah.
That's all he did. Did his job.
And honestly, at least he didn't like, I'm not telling you, and then Tom Sandoval just shows up.
That would have been a sneak attack for sure. Do you want to talk about Sheena and her Shania Twain self?
Listen, I've said it 100 times, I'll say it again. I cannot deal with Sheena. I just can't. She's got these Shania Twain glasses on at SUR, and she's just sitting there in this dark restaurant. They're at See You Next Tuesday. It's nighttime. And she's got these sunglasses on the whole time.
Wow. And then she just walks outside with Tom Sandoval and she's like, thank you.
Yeah. Because he's like, are you going for a Shania Twain look? And she's like, yeah.
She's like, I just find it really funny that you didn't answer my text message. Josh pointed this out. He was like, at the beginning of the episode, she was talking about how she didn't care if she ever had a conversation with Tom Sandoval ever again. And then at the end of the episode, she was so pissed that he wouldn't talk to her. That is Sheena to a T. The switch up so fast.
She's a flip-flopper. She's a fair weather friend. I think that she walked to the bathroom just to get in his line of sight.
Yes, for sure.
Because she very slowly walks by, and then she greets the person that he's with just to have that interaction with him. I think Sheena's problem is that she does not want anybody to dislike her or to have a problem with her.
And that's not reality.
No, pick a side.
And it just makes people dislike you even more. You know, a friend to all is a friend to none.
Uh-huh.
Girl, you cannot be friends with everybody. Like, it doesn't work.
And she talked about on the after part of that episode, she was like, well, Ariana doesn't really talk to me much anymore. And I'm like, do we blame her? I probably wouldn't talk to you much either if you were so hung up on my ex-boyfriend who did that to me. Mm-hmm. Not talking to you.
Because she's like, Ariana's my best friend, so I don't really care to talk to Tom Sandoval. And then she's like so hurt that he didn't respond to her one text message and blocked her.
And she doesn't do that in front of Ariana. She just does it in front of the cameras and stuff. And I want to be like, Sheena, I know that you've been doing this for 10 years, but are you aware that this will all come out on TV eventually? And everybody will see it.
Just Sheena's behavior in general. Sheena is the ultimate mean girl.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And
she's not a girl's girl at all.
She's not. She is very much the stereotypical pick me girl. Mm-hmm. We saw that at the beginning of oh, well, I'm friends with the guys. I don't really care to be friends with the girls. Mm-hmm. Sheena.
Yeah.
Sheena. Stassi called this to a T. From day one, she did not like Sheena. And at first I was kind of Stassi's being a mean girl to Sheena.
Right.
And then later on, by now, I'm just no, Stassi was 100% correct. Sheena is not a girl's girl. She will never stand up for you. She always wants the attention of other people more than she cares about her friendships. It's just not a good look. And I don't think she's a narcissist. But
I think she's selfish at bare minimum.
I think she's just a very selfish person.
Yeah.
And we got a TikTok comment from someone who said that she believes that even her talking about her OCD is kind of a manipulative tactic to get people to feel sorry for her. And I
don't disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. I think before Sheena shares anything, Sheena's trying to think about how that's going to benefit her look on the show.
Alrighty, so now we're going to go into the main topic for today, which is One Tree Hill, our favorite TV show.
We're so excited.
Yes, we're giggling over here.
Yeah.
Even though the subject matter that we're going to talk about with One Tree Hill isn't happy per se, but just in general, getting to talk about this show is making us really happy because we both have very, very strong, visceral memories watching this show, and it came at such an impactful time for both of us.
Yeah, it is my favorite show of all time, and I've seen it probably in the teens all the way through amount of times. Yeah, I'm even watching it now. I think I'm on season 6 right now, with where I'm at. So it's a comfort show.
It's so good. There's some seasons that are harder to watch than others. For me, it's season 2 because Haley and Nathan are kind of there's a huge rift between them for a lot of season 2 and a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
But before we get into all that, do you want to do a synopsis of what One Tree Hill is about for those people who have never watched the show?
Yeah. So One Tree Hill is a teen drama that came out on the CW in 2003. So it's got that early 2000s vibe, has the best mix of music all through the seasons. And
the CW killed it with music back then. The Vampire Diaries too.
Yes, so good. The CW was the center of the world for a minute. But when you start off One Tree Hill, you're introduced to Lucas, and he lives with his single mom, Karen. She runs a cafe. He has a best friend named Haley, and he was raised by just his mom and his uncle Keith. I'm having a reaction to just Keith's name. But and his uncle Keith, and Lucas's dad is a very wealthy man who lives in the same town and has another son named Nathan who lives with their dad and Nathan's mom. So Nathan is very, very popular. He's very wealthy. He's kind of a jackass when we meet him. And Lucas is very like artsy and brooding, doesn't have all the access to the money that Nathan has, isn't very popular. But they kind of come together because Lucas and Nathan are both really good at basketball, and Lucas joins the school basketball team.
So they're forced to have to interact, whereas all these years of living in the same town, and despite them being brothers, they never had a relationship because Dan didn't have a relationship with Lucas or Karen. And then Keith took over because Dan was a horrible person. So he was like, well, if you're not going to raise your son, I'm going to raise your son, which we'll go more into this. But Keith was Lucas's father figure throughout the entire show.
And Dan was Nathan's father figure, but Dan was also very terrible to Nathan. As we see Nathan's character grow, you see really a lot of turbulence with Dan and that father-son relationship. Yeah, so with that comes along 3 women. Haley, who is Lucas's best friend, who meets Nathan through a scheme of, Nathan just trying to ruin Lucas's life, but they end up falling in love.
Getting married at 17.
Yeah. We're going to act like everything is normal that happens in the show. And then you're also introduced to 2 women on kind of Nathan's side of things. Nathan's girlfriend at the time, Peyton, who ends up falling in love with Lucas. And then Brooke, who is Peyton's best friend, who also at one point falls in love with Lucas. So it's a whole thing, but you just learn to love these characters so much, and you learn to love like the actors and actresses who portray them, because all of them are phenomenal people in real life too. So
one thing that the girls of the show, so specifically the girls that played Haley, Brooke, and Peyton, they have come out with a podcast called Drama Queens, and they are recapping the entire show. And they are talking about not just what was happening on the show and kind of diving into that, but talking about what was happening behind the scenes. Because what was happening behind the scenes was none of them were friends, first of all, because of the creator of the show, Mark Schwann, aka Voldemort. But this podcast is their way of creating new memories around the show and being like, Voldemort, you are not going to take this away from us, because this was the biggest job of our lives. The show is so good. You're not going to run this for us. So they're kind of taking back their voice in this. And I really commend them for doing this, because what a powerful thing to not just like dive back into this very heartwarming, drama-filled show, but also like look at their abuser and be like, fuck you, you're not a part of this anymore.
I think because of who they are as people is why you fall in love with their 3 characters specifically so much. And every single one of their characters, Peyton, Brooke, and Haley, are like kick-ass women. And I credit 0% of that to Mark Schwann. I do not give him credit for any of that, because I think if he had had his way, those characters would not have been as kick-ass as they were. But it's because of Hillary, Sophia, and Joy that they are such strong female characters.
Because he really tried to tear them down, like mentally. Not only was he making sexual comments to all the girls, but he forced himself on Hillary Burton multiple times. He would make them wear certain things for scenes that didn't make any sense at all. Like, why do you have to be topless in this scene? Or why do you have to be in your underwear in this scene? It doesn't make any sense. Like, it could have Yeah, it could have been just as true to the scene if they were in full clothes. And another thing, like, you're portraying teenagers. Why are you making these teen characters walk around in underwear? Like, that's fucking weird. There's so much here. Where do you want to start, really?
So I think a good idea is just to kind of start with their letter, just because we didn't hear about any of this until in 2017. A writer came out and kind of talked about the abuse that she experienced working on the show from Mark Schwann. That was around the time that we were hearing a lot of these stories of these creators, directors, producers, men of power being exposed in Hollywood for sexual misconduct, for mental abuse, emotional abuse, and things like that. It was Audrey Wucho. I'm probably not saying that right. But after she comes out and talks about her experience, the female cast of One Tree Hill, 18 female cast members and writers come out and pin this letter all together on this platform and say, not only do we support her, but we back her up, and we have also experienced these same things. So they kind of talk about emotional, physical manipulation, as well as sexual harassment. And that's the first time that, as viewers, we kind of hear these allegations come out. To this day, Mark Schwann has not made a comment back. He has said nothing.
Yeah. And another thing that I found that was pretty interesting, around 43 women from different, like, various TV shows, because he was also kicked off of the Royals. 43 women have come forward to talk about his sexual harassment and his inappropriate behavior with them.
It's hard. It's hard as a viewer to know that, and not because, and I say this because the female cast and workers of One Tree Hill said they didn't want to ruin the image of the show, because as a viewer of One Tree Hill, when you're in that space, it's like a camaraderie space. It's a very safe space. It's a, you love the stories, you love the characters, and they didn't want to ruin that. So I don't think as a viewer, it's not like an illusion of mine is being busted. It's more so sad because you fall in love with these characters and these actors and actresses, and just knowing what they were going through, because the actors, like the men on the show, attempted to stop and attempted to, like, impede his efforts to manipulate and abuse. So it's just heartbreaking to know that the people that you care about so much have experienced that.
Yeah, and they were also told multiple times, like Hillary Burton, for example, she would stand up and she would say something, and they would be like, well, you're never going to work in Hollywood ever again if you keep going on about this, which is something that you commonly see throughout the Me Too movement, of these huge directors and producers and creators saying this to them. Like, if you say something about me, I'll make sure that you never work again. And they just painted her as this difficult person to work with. And all she was doing was saying, he grabbed my ass. And I didn't want him to grab my ass. And can someone do something about this? And they were just like, because Chad Michael Murray, there was one time that they said that they were all at a bar, and Mark Schwann grabbed Hillary's ass in front of a ton of people, and Chad came over and was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, get away from her. Like, obviously she doesn't want this. And so those people would stand up for her, and they would just, again, like, he was told, you're difficult to work with. That's what was portrayed in the media, even for him.
Yeah. And Jana Kramer said the same thing on an interview that she did. Jana Kramer played Alex, who didn't come onto the show until season 7 or 8?
Season 7.
Season 7, yeah.
Her character was so sexualized, too.
Her character was extremely sexualized. And also, I feel like Alex's character was almost, like, more childlike, too. And sexualized, which is weird. But she talked about how they were so pitted against each other, and how they didn't know what each other was experiencing. They didn't know that it was a universal kind of thing.
Yeah. Until like after the show, because she said that her and Chantel, who is the woman that plays Quinn, when they arrived on the show, it was kind of like split down the middle, and Chantel went one way and then Jana went the other way. No one knew what the other was experiencing. And even Quinn's character was sexualized too. Like after, I just go back to that scene after Clay and Quinn are shot and they are both on the beach and she's topless for no reason. Like, what was the point of that? Like, you could have had her in a bathing suit top the entire time. She didn't have to go topless for it to have any other kind of impact.
Yeah. There was no, it meant nothing to the scene. It brought nothing to the scene.
Yes. And that's what we constantly see throughout the show, and the girls talk about it. Like, they would fight to have more clothes on because he would be like, no, you got to wear this for the scene. And they could only fight so much.
I think, too, they would fight back a lot more than I think people would realize that they would. Like, sometimes I think people have this idea of women in these positions, like, they're just like, okay, and doing whatever they're told. These women did not do that. But then what would happen was Mark Schwann would then take it out on their character by assassinating their character in the show. And I know that I just listened to this yesterday where Hillary Burton was talking about how her and him had gotten into an argument and they weren't speaking. So he wrote himself into an episode of the show to make her speak to him and have this one-on-one dialogue with him in the show. And you go back and you watch the show with them commentating on it, and you can see how uncomfortable she was in that scene. Her body's never facing him. She doesn't really make eye contact with him. Like, you can just tell that she's uncomfortable in hindsight now.
And that was all a punishment because she didn't want to talk to him. Also, to that part, I also went back and listened to that. She called her dad to come on set and be on set with her during that day. So her dad was there the entire time. And they actually had one of the audio operators go outside, and it was like her dad and the audio operator. They had talked about like bull whipping and everything, so they had these bull whips, and they were out there just like whipping it in front of Mark Schwann's like window where he was having lunch. just kind of like, we know what you're doing. That also goes to all these people being on set and not saying anything too, because Hillary wasn't alone on set. She had her boyfriend at the time, her boyfriend's dad, and her brother was there. And she said like she doesn't hold any animosity because it wasn't their job to step up and say anything. But it also hurts for her because whenever something would happen, they would look at the ground. And like there would be people that would come up and say, I really want to say something. I see the way that he's treating you, but like I have a mortgage. I have my family to feed. Like I can't lose this job if I stand up for you. So like that's another thing that like, why did they stay? Why wasn't anyone doing this? If this was happening, why wasn't anyone saying anything? That's the power and control of that situation. He holds every single person's job on this set.
Yeah. This ties into that. I'm going to read like a tiny part of this letter. This is like one of the last paragraphs. And it says, many of us were told during filming that coming forward to talk about this culture would result in our show being canceled and hundreds of lovely, qualified, hardworking, and talented people losing their job. This is not an appropriate amount of pressure to put on young girls. So they acknowledge that, like, and they're young. They're 20. Hillary and Sophia were 20. Joy was 22. And they're being told, if you say anything about this, all of these people lose their jobs. That, at the bare minimum, is not an appropriate amount of pressure to put on young girls. That's not okay to ever make anyone feel like that their safety has to be compromised to keep everybody else afloat.
I heard Paul Johansson, who is the guy that plays Dan, talk about this too, they were told at the end of every season, like, well, I don't know if we're going to get picked back up. So, whatever. And that was just a tactic so they wouldn't ask for more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if it was like on the table that they were going to get picked back up, then like everybody would go in there and ask for more money. But because they were told, we might not get picked back up for this. Even though they knew that the show was doing phenomenal.
Right. That also makes me wonder if that's what happened with James in the last season and why his contract was only slated for half the time as usual, because he probably went in and he asked for more money and they wouldn't give it to him. So that's why he was freaking kidnapped and you hardly ever see him, because his contract didn't allow for it.
Yeah. And because who was it? It was him, Joy, Sophia, Barbara, and Paul.
Yeah.
Who were the remaining 5 original cast members left on the show.
Right. Yeah.
So, of course he would have asked for more money. It's season 9. He's been there for 9 seasons, every single episode. He's the male lead of the show.
He is.
Of course he's going to ask for more money. And they're making so much money. And that goes to another thing, too, is I was listening to Sophia talk about how they would have to do all of these like brand deals, but they would never see any of the money. So like Caress did a steal of their like likeness and was like, are you a Brooke, Haley, or Peyton? They never saw a dime of that money. But you know who did see a dime of that money? Mark Schwann, who drove in a new like $500,000 car every fucking year.
Like, and he was in LA most of the time.
Yeah.
He was in LA and they're filming in Wilmington across the country. And
Jiggy has made his appearance.
Jiggy has strong opinions.
Actually, is that Jiggy? Yeah, that was Jiggy. Okay, he's out. He's out.
It's financial abuse on top of everything else, because they're working their asses off, you know, and they're not seeing the correct compensation for it, which was not unheard of for that time period. You know, that's the same time period that Backstreet Boys and NSYNC had Lou Pearlman taking their money and not giving them anything. So, like, that was when there just wasn't, like, a lot in place for young entertainers, it seems like.
Yeah, and they could, in their contract, like they could force them to do whatever. So like, you need to go to this photo shoot. It's like, but you're going to be there all day and you're not going to get paid for it.
Right.
And then they forced the girls to do the Maxim cover, which they only shot Hillary Burton, Sophia Bush, and Danielle Ackles. And Danielle comes in season 3, I believe, to play Rachel. And they didn't ask Joy Lenz. And I remember her talking about this on the podcast. Like, she was so hurt by that and she didn't understand. And they pretty much told her, like, yeah, the other girls didn't want you there. And that's the, like, little tiny comments that they would make to keep the girls pitted against each other and to not come together and talk about this stuff. Because Joy felt so isolated because she was married at the time during majority of filming of the show. So she already felt a little isolated, but they just kept pushing it even more.
Yeah. It's like they preyed on that already insecure feeling that she had. And I remember watching a clip from their podcast. It was from their graduation, not the episode where they graduate, but the one after that, I think, where they're at that abandoned house party. And Hillary and Sophia talk about, well, I think it's mainly Sophia talks about this moment that her and Hillary have together in the show. I guess it was like the first solo scene that they had together in a long time, which in the show they were best friends. So there was a lot of times they were together alone, but they hadn't had one in a while. And Sophia said that Mark came up to them and was like caressing their backs and their shoulders at the same time. And Sophia said that her and Hillary kind of made eye contact of like, oh, you're not comfortable with this, I'm not comfortable with this either, this is also happening to you. And Hillary like clapped back at him and like made a comment to him, and that made Sophia feel heard, seen, and safe in that moment.
Yeah, I think she was like stop touching the girls, like just fucking stop.
Yeah,
it's weird because it made them realize like, oh, this is happening to you too. It's not this like closed door behind the scenes thing, like, because he was telling them, he was like, oh yeah, me and Hillary are, you know, doing all this and like hanging out and all of this things. And like the other girls were just like, oh, okay, that's cool, whatever. And the whole time Hillary was like, no, I don't want this. Like, he's forcing himself on me. He's doing all this weird shit. And how he treated Danielle Ackles, absolutely horrible. Which makes me think, if Danielle was with Jensen at the time of this show going on and Hillary was with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, how different this shit would have played out. Because I feel like both of them, well, if you don't know who Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Jensen Ackles are, what are you doing with life?
Yeah. Just do a quick Goog. Yeah.
Just do a quick Google search. Like, especially Jensen being this huge, like, Texas man. I don't think
he would have fought somebody. Over. He would have physically fought someone. It would have been a story.
For sure.
Nobody could have blamed him. I think it just speaks a lot, though, of how dangerous people in power can be. And we see it so much in Hollywood. Like, that's all you hear about in Hollywood, you know, is how toxic these work environments can be, and work should be a safe place for everybody. And so I just think it's horribly disheartening and sad to see it.
Yeah, because I mean, these girls, first looking back on the show, when the show ended, they were like, finally, like, what a horrible experience. But they also wanted to be like, this was such a wonderful experience too. But they had all this darkness like lingering over them. You know, I heard an interview with Chantel this morning talking about that, like the darkness behind everything that was going on. Because that was like her first job, and she was only like 23 when she first came on the show in season 7. And then Jana Kramer too. Like, Jana was like, this started my music career. Like, this was such a wonderful thing for me, but also one of the worst things that's ever happened to me too. So I love that these girls are coming back and just coming together and making this more positive experience for them, like just changing the tune completely.
I agree with that. I think it's them taking their power back, and I'm here for it. And it's very true to their characters to do this. Like, their characters would have done the exact same thing.
Oh, for sure. And another thing, like, Sophia is such a advocate for people. It doesn't surprise me one bit that she is speaking out like this.
Or Hillary.
Not at all. Yeah. And I think Joy is finding her voice too a lot more, because what's come out too is like, during this time, Joy was in a cult at the time. So I think that also kept her isolated as well. And she's like come out and started talking about that, and she's done interviews about the cult and everything that she was a part of. So, and I think just hearing her talk about that is something that I don't know if she would have talked about years ago. So I don't think she had her voice then.
It's a lot of growth. I'm very proud of them as people.
I am too. You can hear the therapy that they've gotten, especially Sophia. She's gotten so much therapy, and she talks about that. She's openly talking about therapy on the podcast as well, and how much everyone should just be in therapy.
Yeah, I think that if they're going to do any major TV shows, movies, things that are going to take especially a long time to do, they need to have like a team probably of mental health professionals on site, and like real mental health professionals, not like people who the writers or the creators bring in to kind of filter out what's being said, like honest to God therapists and people who are there for the cast and the crew just as much as the person that's paying them, you know?
For those of you who haven't watched the show, there is an episode of a school shooting. And while I think that they handled it very well, like the talk of mental health and, you know, the things that led to the shooting, and I think just in general, the episode itself is so beautifully done. The actor that played Jimmy Edwards,
Yeah.
phenomenal job. Like he could not have played it better.
No.
Like the fear that you see in his eyes and like the hurt that you see.
Mm-hmm. I cry every time I watch it. Like I've seen it
too
100 times and I still like cry, just get emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, because it was just so beautifully done. Skip through the next 30 seconds if you don't want a spoiler. I don't know how much I can say this. Ooh. We're going to edit some of this out because I don't think I can say. You see Dan do an unspeakable thing and something that like you didn't expect to happen. Like I remember the first time I watched that episode, I was just like,
oh,
whoa.
I was in puddles. Yeah.
I was like, where did this come from? And like it was so unexpected, but also you could also see the hurt in Dan's eyes, like before it happened, because he thought his brother had tried to kill him.
Right.
You know, so like there's so many things that were at play in this. And Paul Johansson and Craig Sheffer are like amazing people.
They're golden. I love them.
But the whole reason why Craig was written off the show was because he was difficult to work with. Like by this point, he was a very seasoned actor. And I saw an interview with him this morning, and he was talking about how he dressed like himself on the show, which is what he portrayed Keith as, like just like this jeans, tucked in boots, like just Southern dude. Which is also just like fits his personality. And so he dressed like he normally would. And they would just be like, no, we're going to change your wardrobe here. And then they're like, no, we don't like your beard, actually. No facial hair. Let's cut your hair. And they just started picking. And it was all about control for them. And then when they kind of picked up on that they weren't going to be able to control him, the next season rolls around. They didn't even call him to tell him that the next season was happening at all until Paul Johansson was like, hey, we're going back. Like, are you coming? He was like, I didn't get a phone call. So then they call him and they're like, yeah, we're killing you off this season. Yeah. And he was just like, okay, where's this coming from? You know, and it is a huge, impactful moment on the show that continues throughout the rest of the seasons. Like it carries like everyone's relationship with Dan afterwards. It changes it completely. Like you think of Dan as this like monstrous person already, but then when he does this, it's even more unspeakable and you're just like, I can never see you as anything different.
I will say that Keith's death reminds me so much more of like an in real life death than almost any other show, because the show looks one way before Keith dies and it looks one way after Keith dies. And that's how real death is. Your world looks one way before someone dies and it looks a different way after that person dies. So I think that they did a wonderful job with like handling his death through the show. It's just shitty that the reason that we even have that in the first place is because of a control issue, you know?
Yeah. And like that whole episode is handled, I think, so well. Like they go on to talk about mental health for a couple episodes. Like they talk about it for like a couple episodes and then it just falls off and it's like, oh, everything's back to normal-ish. One of my favorite parts about just showing the grief in general was how they did that with Karen. Like her lashing out at Lucas and her whole body language. I mean, Maura Kelly is fucking Maura Kelly. Like she's an amazing actress.
She's phenomenal.
But just how she portrayed grief in those next few episodes was just something else.
We see that grief come back when Dan admits what he did and goes to jail. Yeah. And you see that grief kind of come back alive in her. But it comes back as obvious anger, you know, when she spits on his jail door. Oh,
that hits so hard.
You just feel it. You feel it through the screen. And you know, they talk about this in the podcast a lot too, that the writing is not that great, right? It's a teen drama that we've even made fun of some of it ourselves with like the Always and Forever stuff with Nathan and Haley. But like the actors do such a good job carrying their characters despite that.
They really do. Like even with the cringiest dialogue, they deliver it so well. And another thing, like since we're on the Dan topic, just Paul Johansson, the actor, he has talked about his own mental health just from playing this character, which is such a dark character. And then also the public scrutiny that he got just as like him himself. Like he talks about how he was just in a store somewhere and some woman walked up to him and hit him with her purse and was like, "How dare you do that to your sons?" Ma'am, that's a TV show. And then he's also talked about how like people wouldn't sit next to him on a plane. Like people would get up and they would see him out and they would like move their kids away from him. Like they would just kind of like side eye him and like be really uncomfortable. And according to everyone, Paul Johansson is like one of the nicest human beings in the entire world. So for him to be treated this way was probably like, I can't imagine how difficult that was for him. But he talked about how his own mental health was so bad during that time because of the character that he was playing and the way he was treated.
I actually think, like, if I remember right, he said that, like, the show ended when it needed to end for him because he was so just mentally in a bad spot. Even though we kind of see a little bit of a Dan redemption at the end to where even I feel something horrible when he dies, you know?
I cry every time I see that episode.
Every time when him and Keith,
I can't even talk about it.
I get so emotional. I still remember the songs that play during these like pivotal times. And then him
playing on the basketball court.
I'm getting like emotional, like even thinking about it. Like I'm getting tears in my eyes. Even if you don't watch One Tree Hill regularly, if you YouTube these specific scenes, hard pressed for you not to feel something when you're watching them.
Yeah.
But I think that he really would have benefited from having resources for him to kind of cope with that. Because I'm sure it is like very confusing for him too mentally. You're having to play this character who's done these horrible things, and that's not who you are.
Yeah. And I know the girls have talked about this too. Like Hillary spent like the first, 4 seasons just walking around sobbing. Like she was crying all the time. And while your brain knows that this is a job and you are not actually like truly feeling all of these emotions and nothing is actually happening to you, your body still has those visceral reactions of like to bring tears on. Like you have to at least some point put yourself in this emotional state, like this very emotional state.
Right.
So it's very confusing. Like your brain and your body are not matching together at all. And so to do that for years, I'm sure like every actor in the world feels this, like it's really traumatizing. And Hillary has talked about how much, like, just having season 5 of her, like, laughing and having a good time and having all these happier scenes was completely, like, just changing for her whole body and her whole demeanor.
Yeah, because her character goes through so much in the first few seasons. I mean, she just gets the life beat out of her emotionally.
And another thing that the horrible Mark Schwann would do, apparently, if there was violence against women on their show, then their viewership would go up. So he was like, oh, okay, so let's do that. And so you see every season a woman getting beat up.
Yeah. What is it about and like what that speaks to our viewership, first of all, because what is it about a woman getting beat up that brings in more viewers? I'm not real sure. That says something dark, but yeah, for him to put that in there, just
I think they said it was male viewership too.
Grotesque.
Disgusting. So Mark Schwann basically is like a disgusting human. He would also, I think they also said that he would write himself into characters too, like for mouth example. There's a character on there named Mouth, and he was kind of this like nerdy dude, but all these like hotter girls like Brooke and Rachel were in love with him and gave him all this attention and everything.
Yeah.
And what was that other girl's, the clean team?
Oh, Shelley. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they had all these characters like going after him and everything, but basically in turn it was just like Mark's fantasy being displayed on TV.
And Mouth is portrayed as one of like the most grounded, down to earth, gentlemanly, kind characters. So that just really speaks to how Mark saw himself.
Yes. And also when you would see Mouth do all of these like grotesque things that were like so like out of character for him, like him sleeping with his boss at the news
that wasn't a Mouth
station.
thing to do. Yeah.
That was not Mouth.
No.
Him with Millie and giving Gigi the time of day again. That's not a Mouth thing to do. Mouth would have been like, no, thank you. But also just the character and the actress having to play Gigi and have to play herself, throwing herself on these men and making all these like weird comments that girls, when we flirt, we do not make comments like that. What was that writing?
No. Yeah.
It was so weird.
If I'm flirting with you, you low-key probably think I'm bullying you, you know? And then these girls are like saying like these sexual innuendos. And I'm like, that's not how we talk.
But it's again, like his fantasy of how women are. And by the way, we would like to add that he is married and his wife was witness to a lot of these things. Yeah. She was there. Pretty sure they're still married.
Listen, I would like to think that she is somehow a victim and not a complicit party, but sometimes they are complicit parties.
Yeah. And
it's like that saying that's like, you can turn your head, but you can never again say that you didn't know. So despite all of it, I encourage everyone to go watch One Tree Hill because it is such a powerful show. It still has made such an impact all of these years later. It's my favorite show. It will always be my favorite show.
It's such a good show, and it shows my favorite city, which is why it's probably my favorite city. But just Wilmington in general is so stunning. I went a couple of years ago and I saw their houses, like Peyton, Brooke, Lucas, Nathan, everybody's house. I went to Karen's Cafe, which is now not Karen's Cafe. It's like some weird shoe store or something. I don't know. Yeah. It was like an outdoorsy store. Yeah. The record shop is not there anymore, but they have a bunch of they have like a One Tree Hill, Dawson's Creek section in the store. The riverfront is still there, and where Nathan and Haley have their first date, first tutor session / date. Yeah. There's like the bench and the whole seat and like everything around it has a bunch of stuff written on it, like One Tree Hill things. Oh, yeah. I know. And then the bridge where the opening credits, it is covered in One Tree Hill quotes. It's such a cute little town. I think everyone should go visit that place.
Yeah, I really want to go. And I love the idea of living in Wilmington one day because, like we've talked about, I also feel some type of way about Dawson's Creek. So I really want to go.
The background on my computer is actually the riverfront in Wilmington. So and it looks out onto the bridge and everything. And it looks out onto where Haley and Nathan's first date was. It's so cute. Yeah. We just love this show so much. There's so many impactful characters on this show and so much growth. Like Nathan and Brooke have the best character development of any character on any TV show. Like you can't convince me otherwise.
Yes. Yeah. I really do think that Brooke's character honestly was just brought in to be like the sex appeal character, and to see her character just grow up and turn into this amazing, strong, smart, headstrong woman. I mean, it's so inspiring as a young girl to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And just to see Nathan go from this like douchey jackass
Mm-hmm.
to this caring, loving, doing everything the opposite of Dan when he becomes a father. It's amazing to see.
Yeah.
Just the whole, you see him revert back to like Dan ways at times. But you also see Lucas revert to Dan ways at times. And you're like, oh, this is icky.
Yeah.
This isn't really in character for these people. But it is really good. And then Quentin, I don't think I'll ever get over Quentin's death. It was so, I don't think I can talk about it. I can't talk about it without crying. I don't know why.
It's
like, Robbie Jones is such a good actor, and like he made that character so lovable. But also just how they handled the episode after he died was like, how am I still like, even I've probably seen that episode like 20 times, maybe more, and I could still watch that episode and just saw how every person carries themselves.
When Sam, the very end of the episode, when Sam reads that poem that she wrote.
I like that she narrated that whole episode too, and she didn't even like know Quentin.
Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful.
Jamie and Quentin's little brother talking out front, dude. When he puts
the cape on his
cape.
Oh, I can't. And I always think about like when Jamie and his little brother are talking, and his little brother's like, well, Quentin was my brother, and Jamie's like, yeah, he was my friend. And I just, I can't. Everyone needs to go watch this show.
And then later on, you see Nathan write Quentin's name on his shoe.
Mm-hmm. Because he was like, it's not a comeback all the time, and Quentin would be like, yes, it is.
They're like, don't call it a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback.
Yeah, but like Quentin was a big reason why Nathan ended up going to the NBA, because he believed in Nathan, and Nathan believed in him too, and that's all Quentin needed was someone to believe in him. And as soon as he started doing better for himself,
he was written off.
Which is a whole other thing, because the whole reason why he was written off, they wanted him to come back, and they wanted him to come back as a series regular, but they wouldn't pay him. Like, the contract came through, and his team was just like, no, this does not sound good. And they were just like, okay, well, then you're going to come back, and we're going to kill you off after like 3 episodes into the season. Like, that's how spiteful they were.
Yeah. And his death, even in the show, you can tell it's just so premature, you know?
It is. But then on the other hand, I'm like, that was another turning point in the show. And so I don't know where the show would be without that death there.
Yeah.
But One Tree Hill does this thing. Like, they have these huge moments. And I think they're meant to like draw you back in, like, because you kind of like start pulling away and you're like, where's this going? And then they have this huge thing and you're like, whoop, I'm sucked back in.
I'm back in. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was definitely one of them. But I can't get over it. When they had Robbie Jones on the podcast, they've had him on there a couple times, but the first time that he was on there and I heard his voice, I was like, oh God, I can't do back.
And he sounds like the sweetest human being in the whole world.
He does. And he talks about, because he has, you know, kids and a wife and everything, and he talks so sweetly about them. I really wonder where the character of Quentin would have gone if they had kept him on.
I would have loved to see it, because, you know, I loved Quentin, so I would have loved him the whole show.
Yeah. And like the impact he would have had on Jamie. Like, I could just see them like in season 9, like when Nathan is missing and everything, like Jamie and Quentin spending time together, and like Quentin trying to get Jamie to like not focus on everything that's going bad. And they like have a day out together and they're just having fun.
Yeah.
It would have been such a light moment in the hardship of those episodes in season 9.
It would have been. Yeah. Especially for Jamie and Haley. Everybody go watch One Tree Hill. It's on Hulu. If you don't have Hulu, depending on how well you know me, let me know and you can have my Hulu password. But it's so good, and I'm just so thankful to have like that piece of art there that is such a comfort show, such comfort characters, and ones that we can kind of lean on. I know I can lean on it when, like, and this sounds ridiculous to say about a show, I think, sometimes to people, but, like, sometimes when I'm just, like, very, very stressed out and I just want to spend a day in my apartment by myself with something comforting on, that's what I would pick. So I'm just thankful to have that.
Yeah, that's definitely a show that I always turn on when I need some feel good energy too. Well, there's a lot of heaviness to the show. There's a lot of really good episodes that are not like.
All right.
We're going to go into our intentions for the week.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. My intention for the week, I'm going on vacation this week, and my intentions are just to spend time with family and enjoy that time and be present, not worry about work, and just focus on enjoying myself.
It's a great intention. I'm going to hold you accountable. No working at all while you're on vacation.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard. I think I'm just going to leave my work phone here.
Yes.
I don't know. I might have to take it with me.
No. Just, we'll talk about that because you're not taking that work phone with you.
TSA is going to be like, why do you have two phones? It's a burner. Not get patted down by TSA. That's another intention for the week.
That's a good intention to have.
That terrifies me. I don't do anything wrong. Obviously, I'm not going to show up to the airport with something crazy or anything. But like, it is just like really intimidating if they pull you aside and they're just like patting you down and shit. It's like,
it is. I'm telling you, when I went to New York, and I mean, it was literally like 4 or 5 in the morning, and they pulled me aside and they're patting me down, and I'm standing there like, I have nothing. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why you're doing this. And they were like, oh, we pick random people every so often. And I was like, good to know.
Yeah. It's like then your brain just goes to like, oh my God, did I stick cocaine in my asshole or something? Even though you know you didn't do that.
Me, like, oh my God, did I pack a gun? I don't even own a gun. So
it's like, what?
Yeah. It's terrifying. So you'll have to keep us posted on if you get patted down or not.
Let's not speak that into existence. Well, what are your intentions for the week?
My intentions for the week are to do something fun. That sounds very broad, but like, I haven't gotten to do anything like with my friends or anything this week, and I crave that time. So yeah, I want to do something with my friends this week. I want to do something enjoyable. Not that work's not enjoyable, but I focused a lot on work last week. So just doing something this week that's kind of getting out, not just at my apartment and not just work. So
it'll be fun.
Some self-care, like you're doing some self-care.
Yeah, I'm doing some big self-care. So
yeah,
do something fun. Like hopefully it'll be nice outside and you can just enjoy the weather with little Maxie boy.
Yeah, take Max for lots of walks.
I'm sure he'll enjoy that.
Oh yeah, he loves them. So
we will see you guys next week. It'll be a shorter episode and it'll be our self-care episode. So tune into that if you want to learn more about how to take care of yourself.
Yeah, because we don't know how. So we're just it might be the blind leading the blind.
We had multiple classes on this in grad school. Every single grad school class went over self-care.
Yeah. Do as we say, though, not as we do.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, we will see you guys next week.
See. Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.